Welcome everyone. My name is Hubert Kobieszewski and I work for a company called Codec DSS. We are a Dublin-based company and I work there as a BI consultant. I do stuff mostly with data warehousing, with ETL processes, with reports. Some parts of the job are kind of a DBA stuff. I also do some work in CRM from time to time. And I used to be a developer, so I was kind of sitting, writing nice, cool user interfaces. And I've also went through a couple of certifications. I was also, for a period of time, I was also MCT. And I'm also a member of Azure Advisors. This is some sort of a secret group in Microsoft. It's like MVPs, they have own groups and the contact with product teams, and Azure Advisors, they also have a contact with product groups in Microsoft. So we know about a few new features and stuff that is going to happen in a month or two time. They kind of are preparing us to what's new and what will be new in product releases. And I also lead a Polish SQL Server user group chapter in Warsaw. And from time, it happened also to me to speak on the Irish user group meeting. So, who works already with big data? Wow, we've got some people. Okay, so after my session, I understand that you're going to start to work with it, yeah? And you're going to put a pressure on the people responsible for new projects that you work with to implement big data either in your organizations or the organizations that you work for. So we know that previously we were kind of collecting data only from the systems that were kind of ERP systems, CRM systems. So the data was actually produced within the organization. Then after some time, the organizations started to interact, not only with each other, but also with customers. So we had more data to collect. And recently, like maybe 10 years ago or a bit more, we started to do something called like big data, collecting information from devices, from anything what we do. Even our fridge can have an IP address and produce some data. So now we have a lot of data that we may work with, but not necessarily work with at the moment, because it's like we don't have much tools or we don't have time to invest into the projects, into ways how to retrieve a good chunk of information from that data. So to analyze that big amount of data, we need to go not only like to do simple reports, but to do a further types of analysis. So not only analysis on the current state or on the past, we also want to predict future, like maybe produce maybe budget for the next year. Maybe we want to kind of have a sense how often we should maybe service our engines in lifts. So a lot of different stuff we can do with the data that we grab from either devices or interactions. So what is actually Hadoop? Who doesn't know what Hadoop is? Okay, very good that you know. I can skip the slide though. So it's like we will actually talk about just a few elements of Hadoop because there are, of course, a lot of more services that are in Hadoop on Hadoop servers at the moment. So the basics is the distributed file system, which holds all the data, all the files that we want to analyze. And we have a couple of other services. MapReduce is kind of a set of applications which we use to retrieve analytical data and to aggregate it and then return it to client. We also have, but MapReduce requires some coding. So every time we want to have a new analysis, we need to write a new piece of software. We also have Hive, which is a bit nicer for us because it's a SQL-like language. We can have tables. We can write select column from table A. So it's a bit nicer, but the syntax is of course different from our traditional transactional SQL. And we have a scoop, which is like a ETL tool for us. So what happens when we decide to work with Hadoop and we try to implement it in our organization? So first of all, business users, they want their reports, they want results. And how do we do that to bring those results? Okay, what we need to do, we probably need to write, MapReduce set of pieces of software to be able to consume that in our reports. But this requires skills. So skills that we probably don't have, or we have it very rarely. And we need to learn maybe a new language, maybe syntax for libraries, something like that. Not easy stuff, yeah? In the other scenario, what we can do, we can take data from HDFS and use ETL to bring it to our data warehouse and then produce reports using traditional transactional SQL. So for us, this is the easiest way because we know this path, yeah? But we don't know this one, yeah? And so Microsoft came with the idea of Polybase. And what the idea for Polybase was to integrate it with Hadoop. And it's not a new thing. It's not something that appeared in 2016 or 2015, and we just need to learn it. It was actually integrated with SQL Server before. Who heard about PDW, Parallel Data Warehouse? Okay, so Parallel Data Warehouse had this functionality, and that was SQL Server 2012. So they were actually hiding this technology from our eyes for many, many years. Bastards, yeah?
James is here, you can tell him not yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so what happened? In PDW, you have SQL Server regions, and you can have also Hadoop regions. And what we can do in PDW, we can communicate between them, like actually reading data or writing data to Hadoop from those SQL Server instances. And the idea behind Polybase was to just maybe enhance T-SQL a little bit, but let people work with normal SQL to query data or to work with data that is saved that is hidden in Hadoop. So not much new stuff to learn, and a lot of gaining in terms of information from data that we collect. Okay, and in terms of integration, at the moment it works with Hadoop distributions called Hortonworks and Cloudera. So these are two distributions type that you can use when you want to work with Polybase. So I presume you all want to start to even try maybe to do something with Polybase. So I'll show you how to do that. First of all, SQL Server 2016 installation, evaluation version is fine. Of course, it works also with developer and enterprise. You need a .NET Framework 4, but you need that also when you install SQL Server, so that's no biggie. You need Java. You need Java runtime, and the minimum version is 751. That's you won't be able to install that feature if you don't have it. And of course, there are some memory and disk requirements for that. So what's new in T-SQL for Polybase? So we have something called external tables, which means that we will go and grab data that is stored somewhere else. And the syntax is create external table. We have a table name. We have our regular column definition, which means our columns and their data types. We need to point the table to the data source. Sometimes we have to specify file format and a location. There are also some optional parameters for rejecting values, which means that if you start reading data, you may say, okay, after 5 errors, I don't want to see anything, because there's something wrong with my definition. I've mentioned that the table points to the data source, so we need to create external data source as an object, and we need to specify the type. At the moment, we work with a type called Hadoop, so Microsoft probably has some other types in their mind, and we need to point it to the location. Location is actually URL. Where do we want to retrieve that data from? And for Hadoop, we should work, but we don't have to, work with so-called resource tracker location. It's actually pointer to Yarn, which is kind of a service that controls the jobs that do work on Hadoop. The jobs will actually do some nice stuff for us in terms of limiting the amount of data that we are retrieving from Hadoop. I'll show you that later, what actually does that mean. So apart from Hadoop, we can actually work with Azure Blob Storage. So we don't have to store our data on Hadoop necessarily. We can do it on Azure Blob Storage, and then we will communicate with it in very similar way as with Hadoop, but the only difference is that with Hadoop, you can send some queries to Hadoop directly and then use like a similar syntax to where clause, so we can limit some data coming in. Unfortunately, with Azure Blob Storage, you just grab anything. What else? You bring it to SQL Server, and then SQL Server filters data out. So we also need to specify how data is saved in those files on Hadoop or Azure Blob Storage. So we need to specify the format of the file. If we use Hive files, we need name of the library for serialization and deserialization. If we use compression, then we also need a name of the library for compression. And there are some specific format options. They are known to you if you work with, for instance, CSV files or text data. So it's like we need a field terminator, which is, it separates our columns. We need a string delimiter, which is usually like, quotes or double quotes. And date format, this is very important. Some files are exported in American format. Some of them are exported in ISO format, so we need to specify that. And what do we do with what data should come as a default if there is a null or something like that? So when we work with Hadoop, we can, with Azure Blob Storage, when we put that query against Azure Blob Storage, which is like a select 3 columns from that table, I have some where statement. SQL Server will grab the whole contents of that table, bring it to the cache, and then filter out and present the results. If we work with Hadoop and we specify proper connection to Yarn service, Yarn service will actually, or SQL Server will actually try to create a map reduce, or actually map part of the query of this little piece of software, and it will, as you can see, it will determine from which table should the data be taken from, which columns, which means that it will just take these 3 columns. So the reduction you see, we are now taking less data from Hadoop itself, and it will use those predicates to further filter data out. So we end up actually with those 6 cells and not the whole table. So which means we will grab less data from Hadoop. Sometimes optimizer will not do that. Will grab actually the whole table, and it will do the computation in the cache. To force it, we need to use an option. Option force external pushdown. And as I've mentioned, we have this resource manager location which points to our to Yarn service. We can also do the other way around. We can force SQL Server to do not produce MapReduce libraries. We want to grab everything and then do the filtering in SQL Server itself. So during the installation of SQL Server, you'll see this screen. When you select Polybase, you will see this screen. And first thing, what you may notice is that you can actually create MPP machine for yourself. MPP is massive parallel processing, which means when PDW is an MPP and it costs hundreds of thousands of euros, you can do it on your own in your own lab. You can do MPP data processing on your own, which means that you can have one controller and then a couple of machines which will do the job for you. And that's the option which is built in SQL Server Enterprise. How does it work? You see, this is our control node, and these are our compute nodes. Exactly the same as in PDW. And then when we communicate with Hadoop, we communicate with the name nodes and data nodes. The only difference between PDW and our environment is this: the connection speed. What speed can we get at our work or at our home? Like 10 GBs, something like that. Yeah. In PDW we have InfiniBand, which is a way faster. Okay, now let's get to T-SQL, real T-SQL. So I have a machine with the SQL Server 2016. I also have, let me open the project. I also have an instance of a Hadoop in form of a Hortonworks machine, and the machine is in the same network. I will also show you how to work with the Azure blob storage. So first of all, this is the command which we can use to check if Polybase was already installed. So if somebody made an installation for you, with this command you can check if your server has Polybase installed. I can see one. Great. Somebody did that for me. Then we have to enable Hadoop connectivity, enable that option. But normally this is the default value, which is the 0, which means no Hadoop connectivity, even if it is installed. Yeah. Then we have options from 1 to 7 for different options, for different like maybe versions of Hadoop distributions. So we have like different from Cloudera, different for Hortonworks, different also for Azure Blob Storage. And I'm using this, the option 7, which will work with my Hortonworks, I think 2.4 at the moment. And then the option is set to 7, so I don't have to change anything. But if you do that, don't forget about restarting the SQL Server. And just to give you some more information on what is happening when you install Polybase, I can show you, okay, maybe in a different way. I can show you that in our configuration manager will have something more on the list. And these are going to be 2 additional services. One of them is going to be our name node, and the other one is going to be is called data movement service. Okay, let me expand it a little bit. Can you see that? We have a Polybase engine, and this is our name node, and our compute nodes are working with this data movement service. And these are those additional services. And these services were actually taken live from PDW. Microsoft did not do much to write Polybase from kind of a scratch, especially for a standalone SQL Server. They just moved that code from PDW, and it's there for us. So let me create a new database. Okay, let's start to work with that. I need some encryption first, and then because I'm going to connect to Azure Blob Storage, I need a username and some, secret key. Hopefully you're not making any photos, because that's my own. Okay, I created a credential for Azure, and I'm going to use it. So let's go to my database, and I'm creating now a structure called data source. Let's do it. So what do we have in here? The type is going to be Hadoop. This is my URL, which means this is the URL for the Azure Blob Storage, and I have a blob which is called Hadoop data there. Yeah, and I'm using the credential that I've created on the screen, which you've seen before. Yeah, I will do the same thing for my Hadoop, for my Hortonworks. So this is URL of my Hortonworks machine. It's actually local machine, but I did a little entry in hosts file. So this is so I used the normal internet URL, and then I'm pointing also to my resource manager, to Yarn. It works on a different port. Okay, and to check if I did those things right, I can go to external resources, and here you go. We have it there. Yeah, they were just created by me. The other thing what you may notice when you install Hadoop is the presence of those 3 databases: DW configuration, DW diagnostics, DWQ. They are kind of a system databases of Polybase. Okay, let's go further. I have my data sources created. Now let's go to file formats. They are going to be very similar. And this is delimited text, which is CSV. I'm using, as a field terminator, I'm using comma, and I have a date format as a month, day, year. And if I say use type default equals true, which means that if there are empty values, I will get nulls on my side when I retrieve data in T-SQL. I'll create another one, another data source type. And this data source type, the only difference is the field terminator. I'm using pipe now. So hopefully I've managed to create 2 file formats, and you can see them there. Yeah, they are here as external file formats. So okay, we are done with the kind of a data sources which are here and file formats. You can say that data sources are actually like linked servers. So it's like they are just pointing to some other locations. Okay, so let's create some tables. And the syntax for that, you've seen it before on my slides, but this is a real one. So okay, create external table, name of the table. You can see that I'm placing it in my DBO schema. So list of columns that I have in my file, and this is the path to my Azure blob storage folder. And then I have defined my data source before, blob storage, it's here. File format CSV text file, so this is the one, yeah? And then I'm saying that after 5 errors in reading data, the import will actually blow. So let's do it. Okay, what is happening? If I refresh tables, I have something like external tables. You see there is another leaf here. I'm using external tables. This is how you see it in Management Studio. Yep. Okay, let's go back to my screen and then question if I can read data from it. Yoo-hoo! This is data taken from a remote location. I can prove it to you. Let's run it again. But now with the execution plan. Can you see that here? Remote query, which means that it went somewhere to pick my data. Yeah. Okay. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually import that data into my database and have it as a local table. Refresh. Yeah, we have our buildings local. Yeah. Now I'm creating another external table with some data about the temperature in the building. So okay, I'm using the same data source, the same file format. The only difference is that the location is a bit different, and of course the set of columns is also different. Yeah? So let me check if I have any data there. Yes, I do have. And what we can do now, we can actually join my remote table with my local table. The building's local table here is my local table in my database. And these are the results of the query. Yeah? So I can actually join the data that sits on my server with data that is stored in Hadoop or in Azure blob storage. And you see that the execution plan in some part goes to external data source here with remote query. In some part it's taking data that it's saved locally. Yep. Okay, now it's time for Hadoop. So let's create a table which points to a file which is saved in HDFS. Yes, I got it. Let's refresh external tables, and yeah, I got my recharges table. Let's have a look if I can grab any data from there. Yes, I can. And let's have a look at the execution plan. It also takes data from remote location. But what interesting thing here is that I have an actual number of rows of 1,000, yeah? And I have an estimated number of rows of like a half of them, yeah? So the number is a little bit different. So to speed up or to optimize the work with the Hadoop structures, SQL Server allows us to create statistics. Yep, I've created a statistics object. You can actually have a look here if you have anything. Like if you expand recharges here, you can go to columns or statistics and then see if you have any. And then I'll try to run the same query again and see if that improved. And as you can see, now the optimizer is quite close because the result is 1,357 and the estimated was 1,250. Yeah? So now it looks a bit better. So if you work with Hadoop, use statistics. But the only kind of a drawback is that you have to create them and maintain them manually, or like it doesn't happen automatically like in normal statistics. Yeah. Okay, and the other thing worth noting is that there are some predicates that will not be pushed into Hadoop. Some of them are, and some of them are translated. In here, I've used between 20 and 30, which was actually translated into greater and equal than, and smaller and equal than. So SQL Server will try to translate our query to work with Hadoop, because Hadoop can only accept a limited number of predicates. Okie doke. So what's going on inside? Let's go to systables. Sorry. And we can see that, oh, sorry, I need to do that. Yeah. Okay, we have our tables, like all that we've created, but there are additional columns, which is called, the most important one is called isExternal, and this is a flag if the table is somewhere else or it sits on our SQL Server. But we also have a separate view called just external tables. We can also look at the dmexec external operations. At the moment, I don't have anything running, so we won't see anything. But we can also have a look at the dmexec distributed requests. And if I take any one of them, let's see this one, see if it works. Yeah, I can see that I was querying recharges. Yeah. What else? If by any chance there were any errors happening when you execute your queries, they will be stored in a view called dmexec compute node errors. And then we will have a type of error that happened to us, plus some sort of details in form of a, some sort of a message that comes here. if by any chance you have any of the CTP versions of SQL Server, there are loads of rubbish there in this column. So don't use CTP versions to debug your problems with Hadoop. Okay. The other thing is that we can also export the data, which means that I have some data on my SQL Server, and I've decided, okay, that's a cold data. Nobody's querying it on a daily basis, so I can kind of put it somewhere onto cheaper storage and save me my Sun, for instance, or space on Sun, something like that. Yeah. So what we can do, we can periodically maybe offload some of this data to external sources like Hadoop. So I'm going to actually use the same table which I've created a couple of minutes ago, called buildings local. But first, I'm creating the same structures. The only difference is that I'm actually placing that table on Hadoop instead of Azure now. So it's like previously it was stored on Azure. I brought that data to my SQL, and now this structure is going to create something on the Hadoop. Okay, let's give it a go. This is created, and we can check if we have it. Yes, buildings on Hadoop. Yeah, in here. And then I will try to export my local table using simple insert into statement, so nothing fancy. Bang. Problem. You have to enable one more option. I'll show you which one. It's called Allow Polybase Export. This flag needs to also be turned on. So let's go here. Oh, I have it to 0, so let me change it to 1. Oops, sorry. Yep. Let's go back to my query. But before I execute, I'm going to create that folder. I'm not sure if you can see, this is a Linux terminal in here. So, question, how can I check the contents of that folder? If you see the first command. Anyone working with Linux? It's ls, yeah? And I have something which is called buildings, yeah? But buildings is a folder. Is there anything in buildings? No, nothing, yeah? So buildings is empty at the moment. So let's give it a lash. Data is exported. Let's go back to check if we have anything there. Yoo-hoo! We've just exported our data. Apparently, you see we have 8 files there, yeah? Apparently only one of them has anything, any contents. The other ones are empty because the size is 0. Why do we have 8 files? Not necessarily. If this is related with parallelism. If we have, for instance, 8 cores, it will do that in 8 streams. If our table is partitioned, you'll likely get this number multiplied by number of partitions that you have in your original table. And of course, this table which I defined, I can query it. I can use it in my queries. Okay, so that's it for demo. So what are the kind of use cases for Hadoop? Where can we use it? First thing is, okay, we have some data which is dropped by some stream analytics related applications, so we can start querying it. Yeah. We can also, there's some old data, we can archive it to Hadoop, to cheaper, because Hadoop actually sits on a commodity hardware, so nothing expensive, nothing. It's a distributed file system, so there are multiple copies of our files. So it's actually quick with analysis. So it's actually cheaper to store that data there. Sometimes we want to, not necessarily all the data, but some fragments of the data we want to push to Hadoop. And the other option is to import data from from Hadoop to our data warehouse and work with that data locally. Yeah. So what's the story if we use actually if we work with PDW? PDW is MPP machine, and without Polybase, we would use scoop libraries to connect, and this communication would go through only between control nodes in Hadoop region and in our SQL Server region. If we go with the Polybase on PDW, the good thing is that because naturally there is a data movement service on PDW, it will connect and talk directly to those data nodes. So nothing, or actually very few information will go through this, like just metadata and control information. So, and this is all via InfiniBand. So it's a super quick there. So if you work with really large volumes of data, like hundreds of terabytes or petabytes of data, go with APS, which is a new name for PDW. And do not try to do that with regular SQL Server. Of course, there is a competition, because Polybase is not the only solution in the world to talk to Hadoop. We have external tables in Oracle for sometimes, but this is only for reading. Yeah, and the syntax is very similar to create external tables and so on. We also have something like IBM Pure Data, Pivotal Greenplab, and recently Oracle released a product called Big Data Appliance. And in Big Data, when you have Big Data Appliance, the syntax is very similar to Polybase, but Big Data Appliance will cost you millions of dollars if you want to buy it. And compare it against SQL Server, you'll see that there is a difference. Yeah? And there is some reading if you want to get familiar yourself with this technology. So there is, of course, MSDN documentation on it. Some of it, you have to be just aware that some of it applies to Azure SQL Data Warehouse, because that's a kind of a cloud version of PDW. And just be aware that some of the functionality may not necessarily work. And we have also introduction on Channel 9. There are few videos on Channel 9 introducing Polybase on APS and on SQL Server 2016. And I've only found one single blog, nice blog, which is kind of treating this subject seriously. It's Andrew Peterson's blog. He has like maybe and more articles on various subjects around Polybase. And I haven't seen anything else actually on the web on Polybase. Any questions? Yes?
What about Hadoop cluster with Kerberos? Is it supported?
Yes, Kerberos is also supported. When you create data source, you just have to add your credential. It's very similar way how I did with the Azure Blob Storage. I had to create a credential, database scoped credential with my username and secret. The same thing happens with Hadoop when you have Kerberos enabled.
How long it took for you to create this demo?
To create this demo. To be honest with you, I first, Azure Blob Storage was quick, because that's, files, it's kind of a known path. Hadoop itself, it was more mysterious. First, I started to work with Cloudera, and I didn't succeed. I actually succeeded to put data and to get data using SSIS, new features of SSIS in 2016. But unfortunately, Polybase failed. So I switched to Hortonworks, and that was it.
You switched to? You switched to?
Hortonworks distribution. Hortonworks.com.
HDP? Hortonworks data platform?
No, there is a sandbox. I've used a sandbox from them.
But there is also Hortonworks.
Yes, it's part. It's like a mini version of their data platform.
Have you done some reading on the competition? Like, say, for example, you said IBM PO data systems.
I did a workshop for Oracle, and it looks really similar.
I was going to ask, this is very similar to using USQL over Data Lake. What's kind of the advantage of doing this over?
I haven't explored USQL or Data Lake yet, so I really have no idea. And maybe the difference is that you can do it locally, and Data Lake is a Azure service.
Yeah, there is that, and USQL is a different.
Yeah, it's like a C# style.
If you've got a partition table in Hadoop, do you have to, normally, for example, in Q, you have to query always by the partition? You can't just do a generic query?
You mean if you have that data separated into a couple of files, then you just you point your location to a folder, and that's it.
But do you need to always put a where clause with the partition column?
No.
So you said that about scoop and HD inside. Which one is the better? The method.
But in relation to Polybase or
Yeah,
where?
Polybase.
Polybase works totally, it does not use scoop at all.
Oh, is it not? Okay.
It does not.
But if you go to the SQL server, then Hadoop is here. Scoop is the middle, right? So
Yes, but no, the data movement service,
yeah.
which you've seen when I was showing services like Windows, like the SQL Server services. There are two services there. One is the Polybase engine. The other one is data movement service. This is the one which is responsible to communicate with either with Hadoop or with
Just either way. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
or with Azure
So
Blob
which one
Storage.
is better, like?
You see, it's up to you. Do you want to learn few new things, or you want to
No,
stay?
it's an enterprise level, like
No, this is pretty quick.
Pretty quick.
This is Polybase is pretty quick. I've tested it with millions of records, and it was still fine. The only condition is like it rather needs to stay on the local network, yeah, because of this link speed, yeah. Don't forget to fill in those forms if you like my session. Anything else? If not, thank you very much.